So often I'll be watching a movie or reading a book, and there'll be a moment where I realize whoever wrote this must have also read this. And that's what I'm going to talk about today. 3 books that I see referenced everywhere I look. And the first one is The Turn of the Screw by Henry James. This novella came out in 1898 and is the story of a governess charged with taking care of 2 strange children in a basically deserted manor. As the days go by, she starts to worry something's really wrong in this house. It might be haunted, and in fact, even the kids themselves have become creatures she doesn't understand. She starts to worry they themselves might be haunted. Now, obviously, this book has inspired so many adaptations. Some of the movies have this title. There's The Innocents, there's The Haunting of Bly Manor. There's also movies that have the same setting, but maybe take it a little bit different way, like The Orphanage or The Others. But there's 3 other things about this book that I just see referenced all the time. And the first is it's the fact that when you put this book down, you're not going to be quite sure what happened. Exactly who was haunted, when did it start, who was haunting who, how much of it actually happened in the protagonist's mind. I see that in American Psycho, in any book that makes you really think through the story itself and decide for yourself, hey, what happened in this story? Why did it terrify me so much? And the second thing is that it is a story that makes you think about stories. It's not actually a book, it's a story within a story. It's a group of people sitting around a fire. And they're telling each other scary stories, and one of them says, hey, I've got one that amps up everything that we've heard so far. Let me send away, I need to get this diary that he claims that the governess had kept, and come back tomorrow night, and I will read it to you. And so in that way, it's very much about our relationship to the story and the way we filter these stories and try to change them in order to impress an audience. You can see this in like Mason and Dixon by Thomas Pynchon, all sorts of books where there's a framing device through which the author sort of filters the story for the reader. And the third thing about this book is the way it obliquely calls out the elements that actually make it so terrifying. On the very first page, the people have just finished listening to a ghost story. And somebody gets up and says, I agree in regard to Griffin's ghost, or whatever it was, that in appearing first to a little boy at such a tender age adds a particular touch. But it's not the first occurrence of its charming kind that I know to have involved a child. And if the child gives the effect another turn of the screw, what do you say to 2 children? We say, of course, someone exclaimed that they give 2 turns, and also that we want to hear about them. This crowd is just so gleeful. They want to hear this story, which the person promises them is absolutely dreadful. In that way, it makes you consider yourself, why would I want to read this story? If all they're telling me is it's terrible, is it really something that I want inside my head? The second book, or author really, that I see referenced absolutely everywhere is this guy, Phillip K Dick. I'm holding up Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep. I've actually read 5 of this author's novels, and I don't know why. I don't really connect with his writing style at all. But the power of his ideas, the originality of his ideas, just keep me coming back for more. Now, obviously, Hollywood rips this person off all the time, or they make adaptations based on his books all the time. Minority Report, Total Recall, Blade Runner is actually based on this book, Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep. There was a film version of A Scanner Darkly, which is by far my favorite of this author's novels. It is absolutely eerie the way that he presaged the modern environment, both the technology that would creep into our lives, but also that way that that technology would affect us internally. The main character of this book is a bounty hunter whose job it is to hunt down androids who are basically indistinguishable from human beings. He himself has a secret shame. He has a sheep, which is an android. It's an electric sheep. As he's taking care of it towards the book's beginning, he sees his neighbor taking care of the neighbor's horse. Rick wished to God he had a horse, in fact, any animal. Owning and maintaining a fraud had a way of gradually demoralizing one, and yet from a social standpoint, it had to be done. This book is about the way that caring for things that are not real, not organic, not human, will rip at our souls. I see that idea that we care about the fake us more than we do the real us, everywhere I go. And as you work your way through his catalog, you're going to look and say like, oh, I bet the people who wrote The Matrix read that. Oh, I bet the people who wrote The Truman Show read that. Sometimes it seems like half the things I see on TV were born in a novel by this author. I try to avoid sweeping statements about books. Everyone needs to read this book, or I recommend this book to everyone. But Frankenstein is a book that I do kind of wish everyone would give a shot. Like the turn of the screw, Frankenstein has a framing device. It's told by a ship's captain who's on his way to the North Pole, and while he's there, he runs into a deranged person out there running around on the ice. The person tells him a horrifying story about how he discovered the secret of life and he imbued it in this monster. And then he was so horrified by his own creation that he abandoned that monster, and the monster responded by going on a killing spree, killing innocent people. And now Dr. Frankenstein has to track it down and end it once and for all. Now, this book was subtitled The Modern Prometheus, and in some ways it's that retelling of a classic Greek myth, a warning, don't play God. But it also has two huge ideas that scare the heck out of me, and which I see everywhere I look. The first is, why do humans keep making things that can kill us? No other species does this. And the second thing that I think when I read this book is, why are we the only species that has the ability to look at ourselves in the mirror and not like what we see? Turn around and take that shame, that rage out on our Creator, our fathers, our God, whoever it was. These are huge ideas, and I see them in our debates about artificial intelligence, obviously about nuclear weapons and things like that. I see them reflected in movies that you might not think of, like Jurassic Park. If you read this book, you see where a lot of those ideas were born. And the power of Mary Shelley's story is resonating with us and all of storytelling today. If you watch my channel, a lot of times I tag my videos with a trailer for my own book. I don't have a trailer for Mary Monster, but I wanted to put it here because Mary Shelley is a character in this novel. It's a story of an aging music critic. When he was a child, he witnessed this horrifying murder outside a legendary music hall in Manchester. Now in his 40s, he hears a report of a similar murder at an art gallery. As he investigates, he gets drawn into Mary's world. That sounds interesting. Check it out. Obviously, this is a book that was inspired by all the books that I talked about today.